Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Roxay Garcia with Roxay Productions, and I have the honor of being able to host and moderate today's conversation with our wonderful panelists. Thank you to Seattle Repertory Theater for the invite. And all of us were able to witness Quixote Nuevo a couple of days and weeks ago. And so we're really excited to be able to really ground this conversation and this play in the local context, in the context of cultural and spiritual workers here in the region. Again, my name is Roxay Garcia. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm really excited to be able to talk to you and present to you, for those of you who are new to this topic, a little bit about what is going on with Mexican spirituality here in the Pacific Northwest. As we get started, I want to hand it over to my panelists for an introduction. And panelists, please share your name, your pronouns, where your people are from, or who are you connected to, and the medicine that you share with the world.
Well, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Manuel. I use he and they pronouns. My people are from Mexico. We are indigenous to those lands. My mom is from Nayarit. My dad is from Zacatecas. And the medicine that I practice with the world is trying to be a more authentic version of myself. When you see other people expressing who they are, it gives us permission to be just yourself. And through that, I found connection through crystals, for instance. So that's part of what I practice.
Thank you, Manuel.
Hola, mi gente. My name is Patricia Pacheco, and I come from mi papá, Miguel Ángel Pacheco, and mi mamá, Martina Lobato Salgado. And my peoples come from the coast of Guerrero, and mi papá comes from Jalisco and Michoacán. So that's where my roots are. And the medicine that I share with the world is, I'm really passionate about, one, connecting people to different cultural health practitioners like myself, and secondly, like bringing in skills of that calm the nervous system. So ACS, like herbal medicine, or some breath work, some yoga. That's the medicine I like to share.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hola, amigos. My name is Joselito Flores del Castillo. I use the pronouns he and child in the city, all of the above. Me gusta usar todas las pronouns. También soy tejano, mexicano, Mexican American. Y I want to say that the medicine that I bring, I'm a curandero here in the Pacific Northwest, and I love sharing that tradition, the culture, la medicina, todo lo que es lo bonito para seguir adelante so that we can become better versions of ourselves, healing through pomadas, egg wash, todo. Solo que, las limpias especialmente, pero más importante, most important to me is bringing the community together and sharing medicine that way, unos con los otros.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Manuel, Patricia, and Joselito for being here and having this really awesome conversation in the context of a piece of art that we all got to witness.
Yeah.
Something that is not so common. As someone who grew up in the Northwest, I don't think I would have ever imagined being able to witness a piece of art like Quixote Nuevo in a theater like this. And so it's pretty awesome to be able to not just witness that, but to be able to bring this conversation to a larger audience that the Seattle Rep has out there. In Quixote Nuevo, the themes of spirituality are incredibly present. In this retelling of this classic, we encounter a character that is dancing between two realms constantly. That is the realm of the living and the realm of the dead. Through your practice, how have you been able to understand this constant and persistent balance that we have with life and death, both figuratively and literally? So, Patricia, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah. What really comes to mind for me is, like, from my teachers, learning about the movement of the seasons. So, winter, there's a lot of different energies that move through the seasons. Winter being like needing more rest, more eating more nourishing foods, just taking your time, being slow. Spring being that reemergence, like coming back from that deep rest. Summer, like you're full out, like you're out and about, maybe out with your friends, like at the beach, whatever it is. And then fall, that transition phase where, you know, maybe you're taking stock, it's that harvest season, and maybe you're transitioning and realizing that some things need to die off. So when I'm going through some of my own hardships, that's really what I lean into, is that medicine wheel medicine of just tapping into the seasons, and how does that come into like my daily life? How does that go into the way that, the way that I work out? And you know, what I'm thinking secondly is like literally I lost my cousin recently, and I had to go through all those seasons constantly, like going through that deep grief, having to reemerge and then remind myself like, okay, you are that person, you know, like I am that person. I don't need to be deep in it. So I think how I really think about this cycle is just that it's all temporary. Like there's energies that can help uplift me and move me through those heavy moments.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. Para mí solamente, especially with this production, and the one thing that kept coming back to me is I do a lot of work with ancestor work, and I totally believe on that side. I mean, I think I live that side more than I am here present. Me gusta mucho estudiar mis antepasados. So the balance of seeing that and seeing that compassion and that love for those abuelitos or those lovers or what have you. And so finding that balance to me is that honoring of that time, of those loved ones that have passed away, and come back and say, please forgive, let's move on, let's do the things that we need to do to move forward. Pero se me hace a mí lo más importante is the feeling that captures in the show, that feeling of being connected immediately to those that have passed on that I love. And when I look at the practice that I provide as well, hago mis 60 cups of coffee every other day for my past relatives. And that is for all of those beautiful ancestors that were there, and that feeling of connection. And I just really enjoy connecting and bringing that in, and that's where that medicine and that love and that culture and all of it just blends in together.
Mm-hmm. For myself, I think of my experiences with death, and I lost my grandmother in 2013, and I think that was the first major loss in my life where it really impacted me. She helped raise me, and having experienced that, also I was actually working on a cruise ship when it happened, so it was just, I didn't get to be there with my family when it happened. I did end up going to the funeral, thankfully. Having that experience, and then 2 years later losing my youngest aunt, and then recently losing my aunt, another aunt, has given me just a newfound perspective. Every time you lose someone in your life, that you are further reminded, that the time we are here is temporary, and that the way I see, this life is, death is not an end. It is the end of this part of the cycle, but it continues. So during the pandemic, I actually started doing an ofrenda for Dia de los Muertos, and I really was more deliberative in wanting to explore my ancestors, my connections to people who have passed in my life, beyond my family and friends as well, and I've gotten a better understanding of who I am as a person, of how short life is, and at the same time, the opportunities we have in this moment to just be able to exist through the happy moments and then through the sad moments, and understand that it's all interconnected.
Thank you. I'm gonna pose a follow-up question to this, because when I think about, Quixote Nuevo, I think about this like this like life, and then all of a sudden he's talking to Papa Calacas, right? And it feels very familiar, and I'm going to offer that it may feel familiar to you all, this like constant ebb and flow and relationship between this world and the other world. And how in like US society we're so scared of death. We're so scared of death, but we have traditions like Dia de los Muertos in our lineages that bring death to the forefront, right? Does anybody want to speak to like the uniqueness of that relationship that we have between like that fear really isn't as stark in our community, in our cultures, and our traditions as it is when you enter a country like the US?
I think, if I may, my abuelito Eliseo Flores was the curandero, and I speak to him more than anyone else every day. Ever since 1987, he passed away in 87. And he came to me, and it was more of I got scared and I ran back into the house. Después de eso, after that, my abuelita came to see me when she passed, and she said, hey, hay que ponerle atención a tu abuelito. You must pay attention to your grandfather. He's trying to connect with you. I didn't know why I was burning the velitas de la Virgen de Guadalupe. Yo no sé por qué. I was just doing it. And to me, that is just like yesterday. Like I will tell my partner, I burn a lot of candles, right, honey? And he will say to me, you've always burnt them, with the Virgencita. It's beautiful when you discover that passion and that love for those ancestors, for that connection. ¿A qué le tienen miedo? What are you so afraid of is what my grandfather keeps teaching me over and over and over again. And the main message that I keep getting from him, even to this day, is no le tengas miedo, do not fear, and don't treat us as if the day that we passed away. We know more, we love more, and we're here to guide you even more. And it's trying to relate that to society, to Seattle, to all of the cultures that or all the places. Mira, te voy a decir, I'm at the show and I'm enjoying it. The first song I hear Freddie Fender and the Texas Tornadoes. Hey baby, when I started to hear that, I zoned in immediately, and it felt really beautiful and it felt really connected. But how do you convince others that it's a beautiful thing? It's like you were saying, it's not scary. I mean, there are those scary moments, que no? Ay, ¿qué voy a hacer? And then we surrender to that love. And that's how I am able to help others get through that and or introduce them to their ancestors, their relatives, their amores. You're welcome.
So we are currently living through some incredibly trying times, some very difficult times. We're living in this quote-unquote post-pandemic society. Hunger in the community has deepened. We have yet to humanely and effectively address homelessness. We're witnessing war erupting all over the globe. Rich are getting richer, et cetera, et cetera. What do you believe the role of spirituality and healers is in moments and times like these? Joselito, take it away.
Roll up the sleeves. Let's go. We're at this phase now. Ya llegamos. We're here. We've seen technology and what it's doing, and we're very grateful. Okay, where are we connecting? How are we connecting? Roll up the sleeves. The time is now. The time is now to unite and not to judge and have those sharp knives ready for everyone, because something else is coming through. And I strongly believe the more you surrender to your beauty, your individual beauty, entonces tienes más poder. There's much more power in that in which you deliver. We are in trying times. Estos tiempos son muy diferentes. We're going from one screen to the next. Where is that love? Where is that connection to the ground? Go back to the mama. Go back to Mother Nature. Yo siempre digo, go back to Mother Nature. Go back and listen to the trees. Listen, look at the flowers. Talk to nature. Get grounded, get loved, and then share that love with others. Because people, in my line of work, entra la gente, people will come in, and I do a lot of hands-on. The desire to touch each other right now is really big. And to hold each other, to hold, acariciar, a verse uno al otro en los ojos, And that, I feel, is what brings us together in this, being grounded.
I would agree with that as well. I think it's very important to be able to be vulnerable in what you're experiencing, in your emotions. I think one of the most powerful things you can do is cry. And, when I was younger, I wasn't able to tap into those energies. And, now I'll just be watching a commercial or something on Instagram or reel or something, and it's like sad. And I feel it. I was like, it made me want to cry. I'm going to tap into that emotion. I think that emotions are so powerful. I see them as this like energy that is meant to be flow through you. And if I'm going to be angry, I want to be angry. If I'm going to be sad, I want to be sad. I want to be able to tap into why I'm feeling this way. And I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a happy person, because I even think happiness in itself is another emotion we should just let pass through us. But in being able to give myself that opportunity, that vulnerability, it has helped me to connect to others, especially in such a time where, during the pandemic, specifically at the height of the pandemic, where we couldn't see each other. You really could not be this close to each other, and being able to understand how important and critical it is to have those connections. I think it's an opportunity that during these times you really have to be able to be in community with each other and understand that just because one community is being impacted by a specific factor, that just because our community isn't part of that, maybe directly, it doesn't mean that we're not interconnected, and we need to really be able to stand in solidarity with everyone as well.
Yeah, thank you for that question. First of all, free Palestine, free Congo, free Sudan, and also, since we're talking about Mexican spirituality, I think it's important to bring to light all the indigenous people right now that are being displaced in Mexico because of that Maya train that's being built right now. So what I think the role of spirituality and healers is really is sharing the knowledge. I think a lot of us have had to do this work behind the scenes, have had to do it alone. It's not people have been harmed because they bring their practices forward. People have been in prison. We know our native folks here, on this land, we're able to even have their sweats. Those practices were demonized. So what I think that right now what is really beautiful about this time is that so many of us are coming forward. I was recently reading a book, the Secrets of Toltec by Sergio, and he was saying in there that Cuauhtemoc was saying that he had a prophetic dream that it wasn't going to be until the sixth sun that people are going to feel ready to bring all of these practices forward. And this is that time. This is that time when the sixth sun has risen. So I really think that for us that have this knowledge and have had the opportunity and access to tap into that genetic memory that's in us, to really share it, because so many of us don't really know how to tap into it. We don't know who to talk to, what questions to ask. And I think as a cultural health practitioner, because I don't really consider myself a healer, I think that I can bring people, I can, share tools, but it's really you're really going to heal yourself, I'm not going to heal you. I can share knowledge and all that, but it's really your openness and willingness to do so. So I think that that's really our responsibility, is just like bridging that access, making sure we share those conversations and don't make people feel like, oh, like that was a dumb question, you know, like just make them feel comfortable, because I was at a point myself where I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt my body like yearning and screaming for the knowledge, and reading books and talking to people that, you know, maybe DMing on Instagram, but it was like my body was really communicating. So I think I think that's our role, you know, is just like making sure that folks feel open and comfortable, and sharing those tools and practices, because my tools and practices look different than like everyone here next to me. Like we all have a different way of connecting to that ancestral medicine.
Yeah, when the pandemic took off in 2020, I had this moment of like doom, because a lot of us who work in community predicted the inequitable outcomes and the devastation that was going to occur in communities of color. And I remember thinking over and over again, like, why am I living this moment? Like, why do I have to give up, right, all these things and all these dreams to live through this collective trauma with so many people? And what landed for me, what kind of was a gift that was gifted to me, was we exist in this very particular time and place because we have the tools to be able to usher in a new way of being.
Yeah.
And I think that as more of us come forward with our gifts and our medicine, it is really telling the ways in which how we function as a society actually has to go away, for one, the sustainment of this planet, but also the sustainment of its people, and all living organisms. And so going into that question of how can spirituality, our connection to our spirit and to earth, catapult us into a new way of being? Yeah, that's it.
You know, for me, spirituality, having grown up Catholic and having to decolonize my perspective, my education, my spirituality, it's taken me such a long time to become this version of myself. I'm always constantly in my head thinking, I want to become the best version of myself. I'm in competition with nobody. You know, it's with myself. I want to be the best person of who I am. And it wasn't until I was finally able to, from my experience, fully embrace my queerness that I gave myself permission to then also embrace everything that came with it, including a different version of just seeing the world through just what I consider my version of spirituality. And it started with going out into the environment and connecting with, you know, trees and volunteering and wanting to be an environmentalist, and having that connection to plants, even though, you know, I can't grow plants to save my life, but my grandmother did. She could, you know, so like, for instance, I wore this tie with flowers on it, reminding me of her, you know, of having that ability that she had. So I think of, you know, even though I felt like I was maybe indoctrinated through Catholicism, there are elements, I think, of it that are still, you know, that were interwoven, interconnected to our indigenous practices, to our communities before colonization. And it's kind of a figuring out, like, what aspects of this can we still connect to? So I think about how do we further acknowledge our history, but then also how do we push ourselves forward to a new perspective of how we can form a different version of our spirituality and what that looks like when we start to decolonize our experiences. And for instance, you know, when we think about how queer people are impacted by religion, or even within the Mexican culture and society, you know, I've often felt ostracized from my community, and I've often felt like I couldn't be all of this because that was too much. And it wasn't until I gave myself permission to just be myself that I found this sense of wholeness, and being able to just connect with my gifts, and, you know, and being able to witness other people as well, you know, and their gifts. So I think it's critical to just be able to figure out what form of spirituality you want to practice, and just give yourself the permission to just do it.
Yeah. I love that you're too much. I love that you use the word catapult for this question, because it looked very different for me, like connecting and like reshifting this internal person, like feeling negative, feeling like I'm not good enough, all that. For me, what this really looked like was I was deep in my Kundalini yoga bag. Like I was meditating 2 to 3 hours a day. Like I was really moving like all the energies in my body. I was going out in nature and practicing yoga. I was, working with the herbs, and I got to learn from Siya Rishi, shout out to my teacher for Kundalini Yoga, and really just like being in spaces with Black and brown femmes, trans, and like queer people is really what has guided me in my journey and has made me feel like it's okay to exist and take up a lot of space. Because really what I think that this connection to spirit and earth like has done for me is like remind myself that I have everything that I need in me. I don't need to go in the external world to really, get a certificate or get this paper and all those like westernized conceptions of what success looks like. For me, it's looked like, okay, what's the medicine that I have in me? How can I tap into that? How can I tap into my community and like also support each other within that? Shout out to like my teachers, DJ Ale and Estela Roman, who have also shared with me the different, I'm a psychology person, like that's what I did for my bachelor's, and I've been able to really learn about the psychologies of our own people. We've had our own way of healing. We don't have to, turn to, westernized ways of healing. Like we've had our own practices. So that's really what has helped me catapult into my own way of being. So I think everyone just really this echo of like community building, connecting to people that really resonate to you is important, because then you figure out like, what does that look like for me? Maybe you don't want to do yoga for 2 hours. You don't have to. Like everyone is different. So
When I think of queer curismo, because when I started out close to 4 years ago with this practice, queer curismo, okay, Grandpa's gonna get really mad, or is he? I've been connecting with him, or is he? And the message was, I don't care what you put in front of that word, you get to work. You get to work. You bring that. It was me shaking at the facility owner that when I first started healing, and just going, is it okay for me to put the Mary on the window? And that permission that she gave me was absolutely, this is your medicine. This is your medicine. When it came to that, and how all of a sudden, by putting that, what were the relatives gonna say? Ay, ¿qué estás haciendo? Y pasas, y que queer, y que esto, y que el otro, y ay, qué vergüenza. No, I know, and I did get defensive in a positive way. I said, are you making cafecito for Grandpa every other day? Are you talking to him every day? So I've already have that connection established. I am going to put queer in front of curismo. It's owning that and knowing that all that shame that came with my sexuality, and pues tú no puedes, ¿cómo lo vas a hacer? How are you gonna do this? With all that shame. No, I don't care what you do, when you're going there now and you're going to do the work. So coming to that, I'm a slow learner when it comes to like a lot of that. I don't like to do a lot of research because I want to feel it, understand it, dissect it, y luego dame el libro, and then give me the book, okay? So I'm very hands-on. So I'm sitting here, and then all of a sudden I'm feeling this energy from the saints coming in, and I'm going, okay, espérate un momentito. Why are y'all coming to me? I am not a Catholic. I'm not a Catholic. Joselito, aquí estamos a ayudarte, te vamos a ayudar en las cosas bonitas que se tienen que hacer. With these beautiful things that we have to do. So it becomes the separation of the structured religion and what their concepts, y que esto y que el otro, because everybody took from somebody else, honey. Okay? Todos, okay? So in my experience, putting that Virgencita, the mama, to just take care, nurture that womb, that lovely hum that we hear that cradles us, the trees, the birds, the river, the sound, todo eso. So coming back to queer curismo and what that represents in the healing modalities, I always say to people too, put the book down. Go feel. Put the book down. Because they come with, I know this and I know that and I know this. And so why do you need the limpia for? Si tú sabes todo. You know? And it becomes beautiful when that freedom, when you walk into that space, that freedom of, with that barrida to just let everything go and speak spirit to spirit. How beautiful and magical is that? Que no? It's that connection once we release or what have you.
I just want to make an offering to folks who are witnessing this conversation as it relates particularly to this question about spirituality catapulting us into a new way of being. One of the impacts or effects of colonization was effectively removing people from their spirit. When you look at all of the atrocities that have been committed in the name of colonization, of capitalism, of white supremacy, you question, how does somebody do that to somebody else? And it's because, again, colonization has effectively removed somebody from the source, right? And so when we're talking about spirituality and we're talking about spiritual practice, it's actually realigning ourselves right back to our humanity and our spirit so we do not continue to commit atrocities in the name of a symbol or in the name of a flag or in the name of et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to contextualize this particular question because that is one of the biggest drivers as to why we continue to see so much dehumanization, why we continue to see so much violence, why we continue to see so much poverty is because we are not accountable to anybody but our physical bodies. And this conversation is reminding us that we are accountable to people, to energies outside of our physical bodies. And as Tema Okum has very masterfully said, when we are disconnected from the source, when we are disconnected from spirit, we are able to commit atrocities on behalf of these ideologies and these paradigms that do not serve collective humanity, that do not serve the earth that we live on, and that do not serve the living organisms in which we are to be in harmony with. And so I just wanted to provide that context for this particular question because we have to move into a way of being that does realign ourselves with our humanity and our spirit because again, we will not be sustained. We will not be sustained if we do not do that realignment with our spirit and ourselves. In one of the themes of Quixote Nuevo is that of dreams. There's a lot of dreaming and imagining. And while it's subtle, there were moments in which we got a peek into the dreams and imagination of our characters. What is the role of dreaming and imagining as it relates to our collective and individual spirituality and liberation?
For me, dreams have probably been like one of the first because dreams can be seen as a divination tool, and that's been something that our people's it goes to the Toltec knowledge that the dream world and our world are actually very interconnected. That's something I have learned in the recently, but growing up, dreams was something that me and my dad always talked about. I have connected to my ancestors through dreams throughout my life. The first time I got to really speak to my grandfather was through a dream. You know, my grandma just passed 2 years ago, and I've been able to get to know her more through my dreams, you know? So it's a very powerful tool because although, you know, I'm connecting to my ancestors in this way, for example, another person I've connected to is my mom's mom died when she was 13, so I never got to see her. And through my dream work, I've been able to connect to that person. You know, we're going into lost histories. Like, how are we able to retrieve that? There's many different ways, but for me, it's been through my dream work, and that has healed me in this present moment. I've had dreams where I lost my sewing machine cord, and in my dream I found it. So the next time I was looking for it, I was like, I know I'm gonna find it because I dreamt about it, and I literally found it in 5 minutes. Or I'll dream that I need an egg limpia. Okay, girl, go get your egg and do that limpia, because literally messages are coming through. So as much as maybe it's individual for me, I think what also makes it collective is just talking about our dreams, because if my dad didn't instill that in me, I wouldn't have this deep connection with my dream world. We're able to heal through our dream world. If this resonates with you, although you said don't read a book.
You can.
I know, I'm just teasing, but there's a book called The Toltec Secret by Sergio. I forget his last name, but he goes into the Toltec's knowledge on the dream world, because this is information. This is lost information that isn't commonly shared. And I didn't learn about this till recently, but dreams have been a very important part of my life, and how I heal myself and my community. Doing the egg limpia. Okay, let me hit up my mom and tell her Mom, I think we need to do a limpia, or my sister. Just tapping into that and continuing to share what it is that we're learning. I think even in the dream world.
Don Quixote, I was in, I believe it was Oaxaca, and there was a statue of him, and I was drawn to him. And I'm going, well, what? Don Quixote? And then the story started to play in my mind, okay? He's the one that anda buscando y anda peleando con los papalotes, right? And he's doing all of that. And this beautiful lady that owned the little viejita that owned the little botanica was telling me a little bit about him. I think it's so funny now and ironic that that's happening, that I've come to see this show. El sueño, ay, ay, ay. When the monologues were coming through, when he spoke to the air, when he spoke to the sky, when he spoke and reached the audience, that dream of, I know that dream, or maybe not to that capacity, but to some extent. Yo conozco ese sueño de deseo de hablar. ¿Cómo comunicamos? How do we connect with each other too? Because I can be thinking beautiful thoughts and send them to my Roxana if need be. Mm-hmm. The thing is that los sueños are the portal or the connection. They are. Por eso sometimes we're in and out of that haze un poquitito. Because when Abuelita came to see me, she knew I'm really chicken, de todo. Le tengo miedo a todo, okay? And you would think, I've learned that when you're in the zone, you don't care. You will fight whatever you need to. But I remember so perfectly going, ¿estoy en un sueño o no? Am I in a dream or not? And I was reading this book, and I put it down, and I put my elbows on the pillow, and then all of a sudden, this beautiful light just comes through, and I'm going, ¿estoy soñando? ¿Qué está pasando aquí? What's happening, right? And then she knows how scared I am, so she shows up in this beautiful light, and then she just rocks me to sleep, and then the connection is made. And I know that feeling. I know that when we make these prints in our lives, everything we touch, we record, whether we're aware of it or not. Nunca will you forget the touch of your grandmother's hand. I get really emotional about this because you will not forget the imprint of anyone that you love. Anyone that you love, you will not forget. So when they reach out and touch you, it's an amazing feeling. It's that dream state, it's that twilight moment of, because there's that peace in that moment, in that second. Que no. My loves, where you just connect and you just go, oh, we're there. And that's this beautiful spirituality, love, light, connecting with us and saying, right now, at this moment, aquí te traemos, we've got you right here. So the dream world is as real as this world, is what I'm saying.
For me, when I was younger, I used to actually be able to lucid dream. And it wasn't until a little bit later, a couple years after, I realized I felt like I disconnected. And I think it had to do with a lot of issues, trauma, my queerness, and just issues where I wasn't able to have that connection anymore. It was severed. And it wasn't until I was getting older, that I was able to kind of have more of that connection again slowly. And after my grandma died, I was able to see her in my dreams. And the funny thing with me, and I don't know why, in my specific experiences, I see people, my family who's passed away, and I can never hear them. Like, they never talk. I feel like the emotions, but I can never, they never talk, but they're there, and I can feel them being there, and I'm not sure why, but one of my most critical, I guess, dreams that I ever had was after my youngest aunt passed away. She was the only other queer person in my entire family, so her and I. And after she passed, it was very depressing and horrible and just a lot of darkness. And I had a dream where she came into she was, I was sleeping and we were dreaming and she was there. And it was this really weird experience where she woke me up inside my dream. Like, she pulled me in. So it wasn't just me dreaming and having the emotions of, hey, it's a dream, like, I'm aware of that. But it was like, wake up. And she woke me up in my dream, and it felt like she just embraced me in all this light and warmth. And I instantly just felt like I was purging out of the grief and all this sadness. And it just came out of me. And then I started crying in my dream. And then I woke up and I was crying, and it was, an ordeal. And it was one of the best experiences of my life where I felt that she gifted me that opportunity of, I don't want you to be sad. And being able to have that connection with her even after she passed, and understanding, that at 35, I'm the oldest queer person in my entire family. And understanding that responsibility that I have for my family and being myself authentically and being able to connect with my family and speak about these dreams where I do see my family, my ancestors, and give them also the opportunity to talk about it, to not throw it under the rug or hide it because that's weird or you're going crazy or something. It's like, no, these are our experiences. And if I usually dream with my, with my ancestors, my family, they also do, but they don't talk about it. So once, if I have a dream and I see one of my aunts or my grandma, I'll message my family and be like, did anybody else also have that dream? They're like, yes. And it's, again, of being able to just have that connection as a community within, essentially my family unit, but also just giving them a space where, they can also tap into that space. And, maybe we aren't able to change the world here and there, but being able to, change just the way that we think within our families and be able to help their ongoing life and how to just allow them to be further also decolonizing their own thinking when so much religion has been ingrained in who we are as a community, of being able to offer them a place where they can also share their experiences.
I think about the play and when Quixote is like dreaming and imagining, there's so much hope. Mm-hmm. There's so much yearn for the future. And I think about, shout out to Black women and femmes for all that they gift us. And I think about Trisha Hersey from the NAP ministry, the NAP bishop. And she talks about how that the future lives in our imagination and in our ability to dream. And she's like, how do we create or how do we imagine a new world if we're too tired? And so her ministry, her medicine is telling people to sleep. It's telling people to rest. And so thank you all so much for sharing the ways in which we can imagine a very different future for our communities. We're on our last question. What would you share with people who are struggling to connect with spirit and their own ancestral practices? I want to do a caveat. We're not talking about slave-owning ancestors or like genocide-wielding ancestors or like I'm gonna steal your property ancestors. We're not talking about those ones because we could put limits on which ancestors we talk to. So yeah, what would you share with people as people are engaging in this conversation, engaging with the themes, and maybe even questioning their own relationships and their own practices? Whoever wants to start, it's the last one.
Working with ancestors and spirituality, right? A lot of it is self-forgiveness on my part, or I feel, Cuando te perdonas, las cosas bonitas se te vienen because you're forgiving yourself and you're opening yourself up to a lot of new energy of love, a different way of looking at love, a different way of looking through the window, okay? So that spirituality comes in with that self-love, and that self-forgiveness is very important. And in my practice, for me, I'm speaking personally, perdonarme a mí mismo was the biggest one. That was the hardest thing to do, okay? Now, when it comes to surrendering to that love again, but when it comes to working with the ancestors, 90% of the time, I feel, this is Joselito's thought, is they come to you, and a lot of times it's to say, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry for what I caused. I was in my body trying to control with culture, con la cultura, con lo machoísmo, con todo eso. Te estaba controlando, pero ya estoy en el otro lado. I'm on the other. I can see you. I can be there. I can now see you. So I come to you to ask for forgiveness. Can you forgive? Take your time. That's really something that I felt. Joselito, take your time with that. Take your time with that. So when those ancestors come through, or sometimes my abuelito me trae people that I don't know that are indigenous from way, and these people are gonna work with you, mijo, también, and I'm waiting and I'm excited to show you this and to learn all of this. So the ancestor starts out with your love. And of course, we start out, right, with the abuelitas that pinched your cheek and kissed you and all of that. But remember, we also have those pets. We also have those little animals that were part of your life, those plants that you got when you first moved in, we're going to college or whatever. Here's a plant for your space. All of that took breath for you and produced for you as well. All beautiful, ancestral, just like I say again, that warmth, that hug, and that certainty of bliss and love. So look at this, honestly, if you are struggling in connecting with your spirituality, release. Go back to nature. Go back to surround yourself with the things that you love. Yeah. Because sometimes in your darkest moments, cuando no hay nada de hope, you look at that shiny thing or that living thing or whatever it may be, and then you just come back. And you come back. When it comes to working with the ancestors, un cafecito, un pan dulce, something. I always try to offer something because they love that, and they were there, and they took part of this. Ancestors are there. A lot of times they are silent. Muchas de esas veces están allí, pero te están protegiendo. They are there. So understanding, because there are those moments and times in some of the sessions that are like, but my grandfather wasn't nice to me. And there are moments and experiences where I've had, not my Eliseos, my Manuela, but my grandmother on my father's side came to me also. And she was not very kind to Joselito, but she was able to come back and say, there's a situation with the family that's gonna happen, I need you to be there. But the first thing I said to her when I felt her, yo le dije, Where do you want to go on the altar? Abuelita, where do you want to go? I got so excited, and she just said, we'll talk about that later. She meant some business. And so there was going to be a passing of a very young person in our family. After that work was done and the transition happened or what have you, she did come back and she said, I want you to forgive me for the way that I treated you. And and we've been like this. So those relationships continue to grow. They're not, and I think that we compartmentalize them and go, I remember abuelito and the way he used to be, and he likes things like this. And my abuelito has told me time and time again, we're not where we left off. We know a lot more. We are also working on the other side. And he also told me this, and I know about those cell phones. Okay? So when he said that, I was like, okay, this is reality. This is now. Okay, abuelito, put it down.
Do you want to go? Or? I'm down. So I think a lot of what Joselito resonates with me. And what it's also making me think is that you're probably already connected. You know, it's like, what are the things that you're already doing that you maybe just have to like bring in that imagination, like, oh wait, like esta comida que yo hago, este mole, estas enchiladas, like where'd that recipe come from? You know, like who shared that knowledge with you? Like and who like if it was your mama, like who gave it to your mama? Like maybe do like backtracking of the things that you're already doing, because you most likely are already connected. It's just it's that perspective shift. It's trying to understand, like, okay, maybe right now I don't feel this like connection to creator or God, because a lot of us, especially like coming from Mexican culture, feel heavily impacted by the Catholic Church, or, you know, whatever practice it was that your family had, that this connection to God feels really like only one picture, like only one way. So there's other ways to honor your ancestors. So whatever that looks like for you. And again, like just the dream, pay attention to your dreams, like what's coming up. Are there things that maybe you should write down that you're seeing more consistently? For me, I had just this thought. I don't know where this thought came from, but it was a new thought that I hadn't had before, and it was like, get to weaving. And I'm like, okay, what's that? Like weaving, you know? Like I was learning how to sew and I was feeling disconnected. I was like, ugh, this machine, like, I don't know. It was just like, there's no soul in this machine. Like, what am I supposed to be doing, you know? And this thought just came in, like, get to weaving. And I was like, all right, like, let me Google. You know, because like that's a culturally like lost art. Like a lot of us aren't weavers. Like that's something that the matriarch passes down. And someone was like, all right, like, I'm gonna pass this down. You gotta go on Google, probably watch a couple videos, but you're gonna do it. And I made my own loom and I figured it out, and I still weave to this day. But there's different ways. It doesn't look like one thing. I think just tapping into and just shifting that perspective of like, you are connected. Like everything, like everywhere you are connected. You have those memories in your bodies. Like if it really literally means hugging yourself and breathing through that hug and like telling your body, me quiero conectar, like who's in me right now? Like just getting into that, because Chinese Eastern medicine also says, like, I've learned that a lot of genetic memory is in our blood and in our bones. It's in our body, you know? So how can you connect to that? You know, how can you find different ways to push that out and then have a thought or have a dream or whatever that looks like for you? But I think that it's actually really simple. I think food really, it can be like a beautiful starting point, because those recipes go back and back and back. Like my family's birria is very different than your family's birria. Like I'm sure of it, you know? So yeah, that's what I'll share.
A little bit of both of you have shared. I think about doing the shadow work, being able to Look at the things of yourself that maybe, you've hidden, maybe you don't like, and fully being able to embrace every aspect of yourself, of being able to understand that duality and that balance. And I feel for so long, because I wasn't in that space, I felt like there was a blockage. I wasn't able to connect to that energy fully. It was there, and there were moments and elements of it throughout my life, obviously, but it wasn't just like a fully open channel, and it wasn't until, I ended up buying a crystal when I was working on a cruise ship in Mexico after I graduated from college, not this one, but that kind of started my journey into allowing myself more to just tap into my own personal brujeria and understanding the connection of my community, my people, I started working with crystals. And then I eventually started wrapping crystals and selling them, and I came up with the business name Manifest Your Will, that you're manifesting your willpower, that you're being able to tap into your desires, your dreams of what you're wanting. And once I started doing that, I gave myself permission to just see every aspect of myself that maybe when I was younger, what I was ridiculed for, what I was ostracized for, embrace it as my own, and no longer have that shame that we kind of have discussed as well. And in that, I was able to start connecting with my ancestors, being able to have that blockage gone, being able to have an opportunity where I felt like I was finally able to, I always say, always choose yourself. Hashtag always choose yourself. You are the most important person in your life. You need to be. Once you're able to fill your own cup, you can fill everybody else's. And being able to have that awareness and that connection, I've been able to have that channel open for me personally. So as we mentioned, it looks different for everybody. Being able to also start your own research into just your own history of where your ancestors are from, especially when you think about, communities of color, but also the white community, you have your own history, you have your own practices, and, those have also become lost, and it's your responsibility to go look for that. I think it is an ever-evolving journey of what it looks like to be able to connect with our ancestors, and it starts with you.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes left on with our panel. Thank you all so much for sharing all this knowledge and all this energy with me and also folks who are watching at home. We're going to turn it over to see if there are any questions from the chat. And see if there's any.
There are.
Ooh, we're famous.
Allison Dunmore asks, I would love to know what other books or supplemental reading materials the panelists suggest to learn more about. I believe one mentioned the Toltec Secret, and I caught the first name Sergio, but maybe the other panelists, maybe some reading materials?
Do you have any more reading materials?
I have some other book that it's called The Rites of Curanderismo by Erika Buenaflor. I think a lot of, if you go into Erika Buenaflor, she has a couple books, but those have honestly been the only books that I've read. Most of the knowledge that I have gained is really through that community connection, and I would really encourage that much more than going straight to the books like our querido Joselito said, because it really pairs well. You're gonna learn more of that knowledge with folks in your community, and then you're gonna read it and be like, oh, this makes more sense. I don't know si tienes libros, but yeah.
I really can't. I mean, I do. What's really funny is nunca me acuerdo de los authors, because I will buy the book and then I'll go, I know this. Okay, why did I buy this? But I'm not saying that to toot my horn or anything. But there are some lovely. There is lovely literature out there. I always just make sure that I do the research on where it's coming from authentically, and if it resonates with me, entonces I move forward with that.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yes. Actually, we just had one positive comment from Nabra Shah, who says, such wonderful insights from everyone and amazing moderation by the legendary Roxana Pardo. Also, Swims with Whales in chat says, I love the idea that we can retap into our ancestors by reconnecting with nature and the world around us. Through that comes hope. And I know we have to end, but final question from Seattle Rep, actually, and also seconded by, gosh, I lost the name here. Noel, right, Noel McCabe, asks, have you gotten a chance to see Quixote Nuevo? You already spoke a little bit about that, and were there any particular moments that really stood out for you?
I'm just gonna jump in, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The minute that the bar had the velitas puestas,
Oh, yeah.
when those candles came out, my whole energy just shifted in that it is authentic, it is someone speaking. I think I was the only one laughing at some point and going, orale, and just really getting into the groove. So yes, absolutely engaged and really connected to see that down to the donkey, to the cart, you know, and how they interacted with each other and how beautifully it was just enclosed. The set, the love, the chola, all of these things just took me back to my Tejano roots and just really grounded me. And it was, and like I said, the music was just amazing and beautiful. To come to a place, it's almost like walking into when I first walked into my first gay bar ever, right? Oh my gosh, I belong here. When it's the same feeling culturally. When I walked in, I went, they're playing Freddie Fenton, what? Okay, I'm gonna like this, and it was just beautiful. But I think that the most profound part for me was seeing those velitas, because they represented something, and whoever came up with that might have been cautious about that or what have you, but it reached Joselito very deeply.
Anybody else want to share?
I think for me, the strongest point was La Calaca. I think just where I'm at personally, it was just really prominent and like this reminder, like this kind of dooming reminder of like, all right, like your time is coming. Was just like, yeah, it was just like trying to brush it off, you know? I think that then the character was just so powerful and really got the messages across, and seeing them kind of like shapeshift as well in a sense, you know? And that was really, for me, it felt very like personal in a sense.
For me, it was the first 5 to 10 minutes, right when, you know, Calaca comes out, and then all of a sudden, you know, like the whole entourage, and they're all in, you know, death and everything. And then I was like, wait, this is a musical? And I gasped, because I was like, what is going on? But then also to then have that quick realization to be like, these are all Latinx people, these are all brown people up here. This is, you know, our community is up there, they're being represented. And I'm like, how many times do we have that opportunity to have more of a varied experience of this person's perspective. So just being able to be in awe of something that we don't often see was amazing and incredible. So thank you for having this sort of play here in Seattle specifically.
And the costumes.
Yes.
Like I kept was like, wow, these are high quality costumes. Like when we see ourselves represented, oftentimes you're like, all right, like these costumes are a little, you know, homemade, but I was like, it's like, okay, quality. Like the craftsman work, as someone that also like makes clothes, like I could see the work that went behind the set design, like everything. It was just, everything just left such an impressionable, like, impression, basically.
It's beautiful.
I love the relationship between Manny and Quixote. And I think like as I'm getting to an age where I'm seeing so many of my uncles and my aunts and my mother age, like what does it mean to really caretake for the elders in our community? And Manny did it so beautifully, especially that last scene where he's like, let him dream, let him have this vision, let him have this imagination. And what beautiful, what like poetry to be able to gift our elders the ability to dream as they're on their way out of this earthly realm. So I love that. I love their relationship at the end. So thank you everybody so much for tuning in, for your questions, for your love, for your praise. And we'll see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.